Hello and welcome back to Apologetics for Everyone. My name is Josh Teagarden, and once again this is a senior project. So we are digging into the problem of evil. And so in this episode we're going to talk about the Irenaean theodicy. And so what is that? Well, it's also known as the soul-making theodicy. And what does that mean? It means that God created the world good, but not perfect. And God created man good, but not perfect. So that evil or suffering or pain can then make them more like Christ. So, put in a less confusing way, a less Josh mind way, through pain and suffering, we are to grow more like Christ. And that's what the soul-making theodicy says. So, God created the world imperfect so that we could then become holy. Become holier, become more like Christ. Through facing challenges, we develop moral and spiritual growth. And so, this is, it makes a lot of sense based in the world that we live in, but this is probably one of the most criticized ideas when it comes to the problem of evil. Reason being is because it then justifies evil by saying that God is the author of evil instead of man. And that God has placed evil in the world and allowed it to happen to us. Now, while this theodicy works and it is highly criticized, I think there is some stuff that we can get out of it. So, when it comes down to it, we will face challenges in our lives. And the soul-making theodicy says that through that, we can become more like Christ. And so, what does that mean? That means when you face hardships, say you lose your job, or your friend passes away, or your grandma gets sick, instead of becoming bitter, disgruntled, just building up hatred for the world, you then take that and you grow. So you become more generous when you get that job. You become more loving towards your family once your grandma has healed. Or, you realize that mourning and grief is a thing that people do only for a season. And so it's all about how you take on the challenge and come out of it. And that's what the soul-making theodicy does. It says that spiritual growth comes through your response to challenges. And that if God intervened in those challenges, then it would take away your freedom as a free creature made here on this earth. And so the best part about this theodicy is that it not only covers moral evil, but it covers natural evil. That God had to make a world like this so that we could grow. And so let's talk about some of the criticisms now. So one of the criticisms is, do the ends justify the means? And if that's the case, if God can use this evil to then make us good, do the ends justify the means? How about, does all suffering end in moral growth? As I said, there are two ways to go when it comes to facing these challenges, and so maybe not all suffering ends in moral growth. Is suffering the only way to grow morally? And is universal salvation fair? We haven't touched on that yet in this video, and so here it goes. Hick is a firm believer that even after you die, that you are still growing, you are still being made more like Christ, so that salvation can still be something for you. He is a universalist, which means he believes that everybody goes to heaven, or paradise, or whatever it is that you feel the need to call it, the new earth, whatever. But is that fair? And so that is the soul-making theodicy. That God made a world with moral evil, and and natural evil so that we become more like Christ. That we face challenges in our lives, and it's how we respond to those that makes moral growth and spiritual growth happen. Now, I don't know how that makes you feel, but let's look at it this way. They say that God either had two options. They said God had the option to maximize pleasure and minimize pain, but there will be no freedom. Or pain and suffering would exist, and it is a price worth paying for free will, for moral growth, for spiritual growth. That's just something to think about. And that's not just for the Irenaean theodicy, that's for all of them. So, let's go over this one more time. The Irenaean theodicy says that God made the world imperfect. And in this imperfect world, there are going to be moral evil and natural evils. And that through those natural evils and moral evils, we have the option to respond and grow in our Christ-likeness. But we also don't. And then it says that this process doesn't end when we die. That we go on and continue the process of soul-making. In the afterlife, you can call it purgatory or whatever, but that is where you go until eventually everybody is in heaven. So, which one do you think is true? Which one do you think is real? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching.